Welcome to the Pursuit Chronicles, where tales of adventure, discovery, and passion unfold through every inspiring journey. The town of Willow Creek, Tennessee, lay cradled in the gentle embrace of the Cumberland Plateau, its rolling hills draped in autumn's fiery hues. By October 2025, the town's population hovered just under 3,000, a close-knit community where everyone knew each other's names and the rhythm of life moved as slowly as the creek that gave the town its name. Main Street, lined with brick, storefronts and shaded by ancient oaks, was the heart of Willow Creek, where Clara's kitchen served as the unofficial town hall. It was here, in a booth by the window, that Evelyn Harper, a 92-year-old widow, began each morning with a cup of black coffee and a blueberry muffin. Evelyn was a fixture in Willow Creek, her silver hair always neatly pinned, her posture straight despite the weight of 9 decades. To the townsfolk, she was Miss Evelyn, the kindly grandmother who grew roses in her garden and knitted scarves for the church bazaar, but beneath her gentle exterior lay a past few could imagine. During World War II, Evelyn had been a codebreaker. For the U.S. Army Signal Corps, one of the brilliant women who deciphered enemy messages at Arlington Hall, her work had saved countless lives, from soldiers trapped behind enemy lines to entire convoys evading U-boat attacks. She'd faced down, interrogators outsmarted spies and carried secrets that could have changed the course of the war. Now, in the autumn of her life, she sought only the peace of Willow Creek, or so she thought. That morning, as the sun painted Main Street in shades of gold, Evelyn settled into her booth, her sharp blue eyes scanning the familiar faces around her. Clara, the diner's owner, bustled behind the counter, her apron dusted with flour from the morning's baking. At 55, Clara was a force of nature, her laughter as warm as her homemade biscuits. She waved at Evelyn, calling out, "Mornin'! Miss Evelyn, muffins fresh from the oven." "Thank you, Clara," Evelyn replied, her voice soft but clear, carrying the faint trace of a Virginia accent she'd never lost. She unfolded the local paper, the Willow Creek Chronicle, skimming headlines about the upcoming town fair and the high school's football game. But her attention wasn't on the news. Her hands, though lined with age, moved with the precision of someone who'd spent years typing coded messages under pressure. She was always watching, always listening, a habit from her wartime days that had never faded. The diner was alive with the hum of conversation. Tom Wheeler, who ran the hardware store, debated the merits of a new tractor with old Mr. Jenkins, the town's retired postmaster. Sarah Boone, a young mother who taught at the elementary school, sipped tea while her toddler, Lily, scribbled on a placemat. It was a scene of small-town normalcy, the kind Evelyn cherished after a life of high stakes. But as she sipped her coffee, a distant rumble broke the morning's calm, like thunder rolling in from the hills. The sound grew louder, more menacing, until the windows of Clara's kitchen rattled. Motorcycles, dozens of them, roared into the gravel lot outside, their engines drowning out the chatter. The Iron Reapers had arrived. The gang, notorious across Tennessee for extortion and violence, had been a growing shadow over Willow Creek for months, their leather vests patched, with skulls and chains gleamed in the sunlight, and their presence sent a chill through the diner. Conversations stopped. Clara's smile faded. Even little Lily sensed the shift, clutching her crayon tighter. Evelyn didn't look up from her paper, but her senses sharpened. She counted the bikes through the window's reflection. 15, maybe 20. Her mind catalogued details: the leader's scarred face, the nervous twitch of a younger rider, the way the group spread out to block the exits. She'd seen this kind of intimidation before, not from bikers, but from enemy agents who thought fear was a weapon. It hadn't worked then, and it wouldn't work now. The diner's door swung open, the bell above it jangling harshly. Razor, the Iron Reaper's leader, strode inside, his heavy boots thudding against the linoleum. At 6'4", with a shaved head and a scar running from his eyebrow to his jaw, Razor was a walking threat. His vest bore the gang's emblem, a skull wreathed in iron chains and patches that bragged of his violent exploits. Behind him, his lieutenants, a wiry man called Spike, and a younger rider nicknamed Twitch, flanked him like wolves. The other Reapers spread out, some lingering by the door, others looming over tables, their eyes daring anyone to challenge them. "Well, ain't this cozy?" Razor drawled, his voice rough as gravel. His gaze swept the room, landing on Evelyn's booth. "Grandma's out for breakfast. What's the occasion, old lady? Knitting club canceled?" A few reapers snickered, but the locals remained silent, their eyes fixed on their plates. Clara gripped a coffee pot, her knuckles white, but she didn't move. Evelyn folded her newspaper deliberately, setting it beside her muffin. "Just here for my coffee," she said, her tone calm, almost conversational. "No need for a fuss." Razor's smirk faltered, caught off guard by her composure. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her table. "You hear that, boys? Grandma says no fuss." He leaned down, his breath sour with whiskey and tobacco. "This town's under new management, sweetheart. Iron Reapers run Willow Creek now. You pay respects, or you pay a price." The air in the diner grew heavy, the tension thick enough to choke on. Tom Wheeler shifted in his seat, his hands clenching, but a glance from Spike kept him still. Sarah Boone pulled Lily closer, her face pale. Evelyn, however, met Razor's gaze without flinching. Her blue eyes, sharp as ever, saw through his bravado to the insecurity beneath. Bullies, she'd learned long ago, were all the same. Loud. On the outside, hollow within. "Respect," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the silence, "is something you earn, young man. And so far, all you've earned is a reputation for making noise." A gasp rippled through the diner. Clara's eyes widened, and even Spike looked stunned. Razor's face darkened, his scar twitching as his jaw clenched. "You got a mouth on, you old lady," he growled, grabbing her arm with a grip meant to hurt. "Let's take this outside. See how tough you talk then." Evelyn didn't wince, though his fingers dug into her skin. Her mind flashed back to 1943, when a German interrogator had tried to break her in a damp cell in occupied France. She'd been 22, captured while delivering decoded messages to the resistance. The interrogator had screamed, threatened, even struck her, but she'd held her secrets, outwitting him with silence and cunning. Razor was no different, just another man who thought fear was power. "Take your hand off me," she said, her voice low but commanding, the same tone she'd used to silence panicked soldiers in wartime. "You're making a mistake." Razor hesitated, unnerved by her calm. His grip tightened, but before he could yank her from the booth, Evelyn's free hand slipped into her purse. Her fingers found an old flip phone, a relic she'd kept for one reason. She pressed a single button, sending a signal to a network Razor couldn't fathom. It wasn't a call to the sheriff, who was overwhelmed by the Reaper's influence. It was a call to the Silver Eagles, a motorcycle club of retired veterans who owed Evelyn their lives. Decades earlier, Evelyn had been more than a codebreaker. Stationed at Arlington Hall, she'd worked alongside soldiers, pilots, and spies, her ciphers saving platoons from ambushes and fleets from torpedoes. One mission stood out. In 1944, she'd decoded a message that revealed an ambush planned for a paratrooper unit in Normandy. Her quick thinking got the unit, led by a young Lieutenant Amos Hawk Reynolds, out of harm's way. Hawk, now 80 and the grizzled leader of the Silver Eagles, had never forgotten the woman who saved his men. "If you ever need us, Evie," he'd said years later, pressing a modified phone into her hand, "just call." Now, as Razor's fingers bruised her arm, Evelyn's signal went out. Across Tennessee, in a barn-turned garage outside Knoxville, Hawk's phone buzzed. The Silver Eagles, 40 strong, were already on alert, having heard rumors of the Iron Reaper's growing hold on Willow Creek. Hawk, his white beard catching the morning light, read the signal and barked orders. "Mount up! Evie's in trouble!" Back. In the diner, Razor shoved Evelyn toward the door, his gang jeering. "Time to teach you some manners, Grandma," he said, dragging her into the gravel lot. The townsfolk watched helplessly, fear rooting them to their seats. Clara reached for her phone, dialing the sheriff, but she knew help wouldn't come. In time. The Reaper's bikes blocked the lot, their engines idling like a predator's growl. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue. Evelyn stood straight, her cardigan and sensible shoes at odds with the chaos around her. Razor loomed over her, his men forming a loose circle. "You think you're tough?" he sneered. "This town's ours. You're just the first to learn what happens when you mouth off. Evelyn's eyes flicked to the horizon, where a faint rumble was growing. You keep saying this is your town, she said, her voice steady, but Willow Creek belongs to its people. You're just borrowing trouble, son. Razor's laugh was cut short by the ground shaking beneath them. Over the hill, a wave of motorcycles crested, their chrome gleaming like armor. The Silver Eagles had arrived, their bikes moving in perfect formation, a disciplined contrast to the Reaper's chaos. Hawk led the charge, his black Harley roaring like a war drum. Behind him rode men and women who'd seen combat in Normandy, Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. Their vests bore military patches, airborne, Marines, Rangers, and their faces carried the weight of battles won and lost. The Reapers froze, their bravado crumbling. Hawk dismounted, his boots crunching on the gravel. At 80, he was still imposing, his broad shoulders and piercing eyes commanding respect. "Let her go, son," he said, his voice low but carrying the weight of a battlefield order. "You're in over your head." Razor, still clutching Evelyn's arm, tried to laugh it off. "You think you scare me, old man? This is our town." But his voice cracked and his men shifted nervously, eyeing the Silver Eagles, disciplined. Ranks. Evelyn freed herself from Razor's grip with a subtle twist, stepping back as Hawk and his riders closed in. "You should listen to him," she said, her tone almost pitying. "You've made a mistake, and it's not too late to walk." Away! The standoff was electric, the air thick with the promise of violence. Razor, desperate to save face, swung a fist at Hawk, but the colonel caught his wrist mid-air, twisting it with the ease of a man who disarmed enemies in foxholes. "Two choices," Hawk said, his voice like steel. "Leave now, or learn." What real strength looks like the hard way. Outnumbered and outmatched, the Reapers began to back down. Razor, his pride wounded, spat on the ground. "This ain't over, old lady," he snarled at Evelyn, mounting his bike. The gang roared out of the lot, their engines fading into the hills, but their threat lingered like smoke. Hawk turned to Evelyn, his stern expression softening. "You okay, Evie?" "I faced worse," she replied, brushing off her cardigan. "But they'll be back, Amos, and they'll hit harder next time." "Then we'll be ready," Hawk said, a grin breaking through. "Just like old times, Captain Harper." Evelyn chuckled, the nickname stirring memories of wartime camaraderie. "Just like old times, Colonel." The Silver Eagles set up a command. Post in the old textile mill at the edge of Willow Creek, a brick building that had stood empty since the 1980s. Evelyn had suggested it for its strategic position, high ground with a clear view of the town's main roads. Inside, the veterans transformed the dusty space into a hub of activity, setting up radios, maps, and surveillance equipment. Hawk's second-in-command, Maria Alvarez, a former Army intelligence officer who'd served in Desert Storm, coordinated logistics with the efficiency of a battlefield commander. Evelyn sat at a folding table, sketching a map of Willow Creek from memory. Her code-breaking days had taught her to see patterns where others saw chaos, and she'd already identified the Reapers' likely targets: the gas station, the bar, and Clara's kitchen, all places where the gang had shaken down owners for protection, money. "They're not random," she told Hawk, pointing to the map. "They're hitting businesses that anchor the community. Break those, and the town loses its spine." Hawk nodded, his hands clasped behind his back. "Classic intimidation tactic. Scare the heart of the town, and the rest falls in line." Maria, her dark hair streaked with gray, leaned over the map. "We've got reports of them extorting. Shops as far as Clarksville. They're not just local, they're tied to a bigger network. Stolen goods, maybe drugs." "Then we need to cut them off at the source," Evelyn said, her mind racing. "But we can't just fight them. We need the town with us." That afternoon, Evelyn and Hawk called a meeting at the community center, a squat building beside the town square. The room was packed with nervous residents, shop owners, teachers, farmers, and retirees. Clara stood at the back, her arms crossed, while Tom Wheeler fidgeted in his seat. Sarah Boone, holding Lily, whispered to her neighbor, a retired mechanic named Earl. The air was heavy with fear, but also with something new: hope. Evelyn took the podium, her small frame belying the authority in her voice. "Folks, you know why we're here. The Iron Reapers think they can scare us into submission. They've been shaking down your businesses, threatening your families, but Willow Creek isn't theirs, it's ours, and we're going to take it back." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Tom Wheeler stood, his voice trembling. "Miss Evelyn, I don't doubt your heart, but these are dangerous men. They burned out a bar in Lebanon last month. What can we do against that?" Evelyn's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. "We do what we've always done in Willow Creek. We stand together. The Silver Eagles are here to help, but this is your fight too. We'll teach you how to protect your shops, how to watch for trouble, and we'll show the Reapers that fear doesn't own us." Hawk stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. "We're not here to start a war. We're here to end one. But we need your trust, your eyes, and your courage." "Who's with us?" Clara raised her hand first, her jaw set. "I'm in. They're not burning my diner." Tom hesitated, then nodded. Sarah Boone, clutching Lily, stood. "For my daughter's sake, I'm in." One by one, the townsfolk pledged, their support, their fear giving way to determination. Over the next week, the Silver Eagles trained the townsfolk in basic security tactics. Maria taught shop owners how to spot suspicious behavior, while Hawk's mechanics rigged panic buttons under counters. Evelyn, with her knack for patterns, coordinated a neighborhood watch, assigning volunteers to patrol in shifts. She also worked with Clara to eavesdrop on Reapers who visited the diner, picking up scraps of information about their plans. The Reapers didn't stay quiet. Late one night, they struck, targeting Tom Wheeler's hardware store. 3 riders hurled Molotov cocktails through the windows, the flames licking at the wooden shelves inside. But the town was ready. The neighborhood watch sounded the alarm, and Silver Eagles stationed nearby doused the fire before it could spread. Tom, shaken but unharmed, stood in the street, watching volunteers haul away charred debris. "They meant to scare us," Evelyn told him, her hand on his shoulder. "But all they've done is show us they're scared too. They're spreading themselves thin." Clara, who'd overheard a Reaper named Twitch boasting about a warehouse outside town, shared the intel with Evelyn. "He was drunk, bragging about moving product through a place off Route 12, she said. Sounded like more than just stolen tools." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "That's their lifeline. If we cut it, they lose their power." Hawk and Maria scouted the warehouse under cover of darkness, confirming it was a hub for stolen goods, electronics, car parts, and, disturbingly, crates that suggested drug trafficking. Evelyn devised a plan not to destroy the warehouse but to expose it. She contacted Sheriff Dan Carter, a former Marine who'd served in Vietnam and respected her wartime record. Dan, frustrated by the Reapers' influence over local politics, agreed to help, but only if they had ironclad evidence. The Silver Eagles staged a covert operation, planting tiny cameras, borrowed from a veteran who'd worked in surveillance, around the warehouse. Over 3 nights, they recorded Reapers loading and unloading crates, their faces clear in the footage. Evelyn, watching the feeds from the mill, recognized patterns in their movements. "They're not just local," she said, pointing to a truck with out-of-state plates. "They're middlemen for a syndicate. This is bigger than Willow Creek." The turning point came at the Willow Creek Fair, an annual tradition that filled the town square with music, food, and laughter. Despite the Reaper's shadow, the townsfolk refused to cancel, determined to show they wouldn't be cowed. Evelyn saw the fair as an opportunity, not just to rally the community, but to draw the Reapers into a trap. She worked with Hawk and Maria to fortify the fairgrounds. Veterans posed as vendors, their booths hiding radios and weapons. Clara's diner supplied food, her staff trained to signal if Reapers appeared. Evelyn even enlisted the high school band to practice a specific song, Sweet Caroline, as a code to alert the Silver Eagles if trouble started. On the night of the fair, the square was alive with color. Strings of lights crisscrossed above, and the smell of cotton candy mingled with barbecue. Families danced to a bluegrass band while kids chased each other through the crowd. Evelyn, in a pale blue dress, moved among the townsfolk, her calm presence a reassurance. But her eyes never stopped scanning, her mind alert for the first sign of danger. It came just after 9 p.m. The band struck up Sweet Caroline, and Evelyn's pulse quickened. Over the hill, the Reapers' bikes roared, their headlights cutting. Through the dusk, Razor led the charge, his face twisted with rage. He'd learned of the warehouse surveillance, someone in town had tipped him off, and he was here to make a statement. The Reapers crashed through the fair's entrance, scattering hay bales and sending screams through the crowd. Razor dismounted, a tire iron in his hand, his men fanning out to intimidate. "You think you can spy on us?" he shouted, his eyes searching for Evelyn. "This town's mine, and you're going to learn it the hard way." But the crowd didn't scatter. The Silver Eagles emerged from their booths, their vests gleaming under the lights. Townsfolk, trained by the veterans, formed a loose circle, their faces set with defiance. Clara stood on a picnic table, a megaphone in hand. "You're not welcome here, Razor. Take your boys and go." Razor laughed, raising his tire iron, but before he could swing, Hawk stepped forward, his presence like a wall. "Last chance, son," he said. "Walk away." The standoff was broken by the wail of sirens. Sheriff Carter's deputies, armed with the warehouse footage, swarmed the fairgrounds. Razor, realizing he'd been outmaneuvered, lunged for Evelyn, but Maria intercepted, disarming him with a swift move from her army days. The deputies moved in, cuffing Razor and his men as the crowd cheered. As Razor was led away, he glared at Evelyn. "You think you've won, old lady?" "I don't care about winning," she replied, her voice steady. "I care about Willow Creek. You could have been part of it, but you chose fear over family." In the months that followed, Willow Creek transformed. The Silver Eagles stayed, turning the old mill into a community hub where veterans mentored at-risk youth, including former Reapers seeking redemption. Clara's kitchen became a place for storytelling, where Evelyn shared tales of her code-breaking days, inspiring kids like Sarah Boone's daughter Lily, who dreamed of becoming a cryptographer. The warehouse evidence led to federal charges against the Reapers Syndicate, dismantling a network that had plagued Tennessee for years. Sheriff Carter, emboldened, rooted out corruption in the mayor's office, restoring trust in local government. The town fair became Unity Day, a yearly celebration of resilience with a memorial in the square inscribed, "Strength in Unity, Peace in Courage." One evening, as spring bloomed across Willow Creek, Evelyn sat on her porch, her roses fragrant in the twilight. Hawk joined her, a rare smile on his face. "You didn't just save this town, Evie. You gave it a future." Evelyn sipped her tea, her eyes twinkling. "All I did was remind people what they're capable of, Amos. Sometimes that's enough." Across town, lights glowed in homes and shops, the sound of laughter drifting on the breeze. Willow Creek was alive, its heart beating stronger than ever, thanks to a 92-year-old woman who knew that true strength lies in unity, courage, and the power of second chances. A year later, Willow Creek was unrecognizable, not in its appearance, but in its spirit. The mill, now called the Unity Center, offered job training, counseling, and even a small museum where Evelyn's wartime code-breaking tools were displayed. Former Reapers, like Twitch, who now went by his real name, Ethan, found work there, teaching kids how to repair motorcycles. Ethan, once Razor's shadow, had written to Evelyn from jail, asking for a chance to make amends. Her reply was simple: "Come home. We'll help you find your way." The federal case against the syndicate made national news, with Willow Creek hailed as a model of community resistance. Sarah Boone, inspired by Evelyn, started a coding club at the elementary school, where Lily and her friends learned the basics of encryption. Clara expanded her diner, adding a patio where veterans and reformed gang members shared meals, their stories weaving a new tapestry of the town's history. One summer evening, as fireflies danced over the creek, Evelyn stood at the Unity Day festival watching families celebrate. A young girl, no older than 10, approached her, clutching a notebook. "Miss Evelyn," she said shyly, "I decoded a message for school. Will you check it?" Evelyn smiled, taking the notebook. "Let's see what you've got." As she read the girl's cipher, her heart swelled. This was her legacy. Not just saving a town, but inspiring a new generation to find their strength. Hawk, standing nearby, chuckled. "You're still changing the world, Evie." "No," she said softly, her eyes on the girl. "They are. And in the warm Tennessee night, Willow Creek glowed, its people united, its future bright, all because one woman believed that courage, compassion, and a single phone call could make all the difference. Thank you for joining the Pursuit Chronicles. Keep chasing your dreams and explore new horizons with us.